Okay, today I'm going to be talking about circles. Okay, first we're going to review circumference. Okay, this is what we actually did last week. Okay, where we explored the circumference, we measured how far it was around a circle, we measured how far it was across a circle, and tried to find the relationship between the two. Okay, well, if you remember, the circumference was really just how far around the circle, okay, which is kind of like perimeter, except for perimeter is for polygons, and since a circle isn't a polygon, we have to call it something else. Okay, so we call it a circumference. Okay, it's really just how far, the distance around a circle. Okay, so if I have a circle, okay, then the distance all the way around the circle is the circumference. Okay, we also know that the distance across from one side to the other, going through the middle, is the diameter. Okay, and that if I only go halfway, then that's the radius. So over here, from the middle to one side is a radius, and from the middle to the other side is another radius. So you can see that if I have two radiuses, then I get the diameter. They're the same thing. Okay, diameter is all the way across, radius is halfway across. So the radius is always exactly half the length of the diameter. Now, the other day when we were exploring, we figured out the relationship between circumference and diameter. We figured out that circumference equaled pi times diameter. But also, since we know that a radius, two radiuses, make a diameter, then we know that circumference equals 2 pi r as well. Because these two say the same thing. Notice the pi is the same. The only difference is one we have a diameter and one we have a 2 and an r. Well, 2 times r is the same thing as the diameter, so that's why these equations are the same. These formulas give you the same answer every time, so you can use whichever one you want. Okay, if you happen to have the diameter, you can use this one. If you happen to have the radius, you can use this one. Or you can just always use one or the other, it doesn't matter. Okay, because they are the same. Alright, so now, let's practice a few of these before we move on to something new. So we're going to calculate the circumference of these two circles. Okay, so I'll give you a second, make sure you use your formula, and then we'll go over them together. Okay, for the first one, again, just like with polygons, I have to first know which shape I'm dealing with. Well, I'm dealing with a circle. Alright, that's easy. Alright, now I need to know which formula. I'm using the circumference formula, so that's circumference equals pi times diameter. Alright, now I have to identify the pieces I need. All I need is the diameter. Well, here's the diameter, so it's 5. So circumference equals pi times 5. Okay, so the circumference equals 15.7 inches. On the second circle, again, I'm using a circle, finding circumference, so circumference equals pi times diameter again. But this time, it gave me the radius. Now, I could use the other formula if I wanted, but let's say I like this formula. All I have to do is figure out what the diameter would be. So if I kept going across, then that would be the diameter. If it's 4 halfway, then the other half would be 4 as well, so the diameter is 8. So circumference equals pi times 8 for this circle. So it equals 23.1 meters. Now notice, I didn't use inches squared or meters squared. Why not? We did that the other day. Okay, and that's because this isn't area. This is circumference. Okay, area is space. Space is units squared. Okay, circumference is a distance. Okay, distance is just a unit. Inches, that's the length. meters. That's a length. Okay, it tells you how far around this circle. Okay, in other words, if I cut the circle and laid it out in a straight line, then this one would be 23.1 meters long, approximately. Okay, that's why we do not have inches squared or meters squared for circumference, only for area. Okay, all right, now let's move on to the new part of today's lesson, and that's area of circles. Okay, now, first I have a circle. Now, just like the other day, I'm going to try to break this circle up and turn it into another shape that I already know how to find the area of. So I'm going to cut it into 8 pieces, basically like a pizza, so that I can rearrange this shape. Okay, now, I have 2 choices, and either one would work. Okay, I could just take one of these pieces and say it's a triangle. Okay, because then I could find the area of that triangle and multiply by 8 and get the area of the whole circle. Okay, or I could take all of these triangles and put them together to make a parallelogram. So if I cut this circle and place these triangles facing each other in a straight line, then I would end up with a shape like this. Now, granted, it's not an exact parallelogram because this has like bumps on the bottom and bumps on the top. Okay, but the vague shape of it is still a parallelogram. Okay, so we can still use the idea of finding area here. Okay, if this was a parallelogram, I would use base and I would use height to find the area. Well, just like before, I need to figure out where this base and height would be for this circle. Okay, well, the height's fairly simple. The height just went from the outside right into the point which is in the middle. Okay, so that means that the height would be this line right here. And what do we know that that line is called? It's the radius. Okay, so we know that the height of the parallelogram is the same as the radius of the circle. Okay, now what about the base? The base is the bottom here, so if I colored the bottom, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, the back of 4 triangles. So if I do that over here on the circle, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, notice I kind of went around the circle, didn't I? Okay, well if I went all the way around the circle, it would have been the circumference. But I didn't go all the way around. I only went halfway around. Okay, and since I went halfway around, then that's only half of the circumference. Okay, so the radius is the same as the height, and half of the circumference is the same as the base. So I can do my formula. The formula for the parallelogram would have been A equals base times height. But the base and the height are actually now 1/2 of circumference and radius. So now I'm going to simplify that, because that wouldn't be that easy to calculate. Okay, well I know what circumference is. Area equals 1/2 of pi times diameter times radius. Okay, so now I'm going to keep going a little bit more, because half of the diameter, what would half of the diameter be? Well, half of the diameter is just radius. So see, half of pi times diameter is just half of radius, and then I still have times radius. Well, I can simplify that. The area is pi times radius squared. And that's the formula for area of a circle. Area of a circle equals pi times radius squared. Okay, and you can see that we're doing a dimension times a dimension. We're actually squaring the dimension here. That's why when we do our units, it will be units squared, because it's area. Okay, and we're squaring it. Okay, just like all the other areas, we did a unit times a unit, and we will be doing that again for area of a circle. So this is the formula that you will use for area of a circle. Alright, so now see if you can find the area of these two circles. Okay, I'll give you a minute and then we'll go over them together. Okay, so looking at the first one, again, I have a circle, but this time I'm looking for area, so I use area equals pi r squared. So I need to identify the radius. Well, the 6 feet is the diameter, so that means the radius would be half of that. Okay, so the radius would equal 3 feet. So I can plug that in. Area equals pi times 3 squared. So area equals pi times 9. Therefore the area is 28.3 feet squared. Okay, just like before, area is always units squared. Alright, in the next circle. I have again, the formula for area of a circle is area equals pi r squared. This time, they did give me the radius, so I can use it. Pi times 5 squared is pi times 25. So area equals 78.5 meters squared. Okay, so we're just plugging it in using the formula just like we did for area of everything else. Okay, so now, last page. This time, you're going to find the circumference and the area of each circle. Okay, because when you're working on a problem, you're not going to know which one it's asking you for. So you have to be able to do both of them from any given circle. Okay, so you've got two circles here. You need to find the circumference and the area of each of them. And then we'll look at them together. Okay, so the first circle, it tells me this distance is 1 kilometer. Okay, well, I'm going to look for circumference first. So I know circumference is pi times diameter. But this isn't the diameter. That's the radius. So I know that I'm going to have to find the diameter, which is twice the radius. So the diameter would be 2 kilometers. Okay, so I know the diameter is 2. So circumference equals pi times 2, which is 6.28 kilometers. Not squared, because circumference is distance. Okay, and then for the area, the formula for area is pi r squared. Well, it did give me the r already, so I can use the 1. Pi times 1 squared is just pi times 1. Okay, which pi times 1 is just pi, so 3.14 kilometers squared. So I have the circumference and the area for this circle. This is the distance around the circle. This is the space inside the circle. Alright, and for the next one, I'm going to again find the circumference first. Okay, and it gave me the diameter this time. So I'm going to use that 10. I have pi times 10, so that's 31.4 inches. So now I've got to find the area. So I'm going to do A equals pi r squared. Well, it only gives me the diameter, so I know that the radius has to be half of that. So the radius is 5 inches. So I know that the area equals pi times 5 squared. which is pi times 25. So the area of this circle is 78.5 inches squared. So at this point, you should be able to find the circumference and the area for any given circle, whether they give you the radius or give you the diameter, because you can always find the other one if you need to.